Well, welcome, and I'm really glad you guys decided to join everybody and just do something different. Like Robbie's saying, you might be kind of sitting around
Yeah.
a little bored or just need to see some folks that you know. So that's
Mhm.
cool. This is getting recorded, FYI. It's being live streamed on YouTube. Should have warned you. Okay. So it will be there if you should want to share any portion of it with people, or just know it's there so we can blackmail you later in your life, right? Okay. So our first reader is Carissa Roberson, and she's been helping me this summer with doing media stuff, social media stuff. Um, I'll let you. Do you want to introduce what you're going to read and
Sure.
read?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of a random thing. It's not from anything really. It's just like a scene that I wrote a while back, and I was honestly trying to find something, so I just took it out of a box. So don't expect too much. A spark like a tiny lightning strike lit the darkened room as Ethan struck the flint yet again against his knife blade. Nothing. He stirred his little pile of kindling with one finger as if that would make it more eager to catch fire. Terence watched from where he sat, back to the clammy stone wall, his dirt-caked boots stretched out in front of him. He would have offered to help, but he couldn't find the energy. Days of running, hiding, fighting, waiting in suspense with no food, little water, and sleep but a distant memory. Closing his eyes, he let his head rest against the wall. Even the fear seemed duller now, drowned out by overwhelming fatigue. Ethan shifted in the dark and struck the knife again. This time a brief tongue of flame licked at the dead leaves on the floor, but it soon dissolved in a wisp of smoke. Terence cracked one eye open as the flare of light faded. Only the barest gray pall remained, just enough to make out the contours of the room and the outline of his friend as he brushed the kindling aside and slumped back with a grunt of resignation. They sat in the half-darkness for a long moment, saying nothing. Only a hint of sunlight found its way into the cold, hunkered cellar. Thankfully, a crumbled corner of the wall, where an old drainage pipe used to run, allowed the outside air to flow in. But the hole wasn't large enough to provide an escape passage. They were safe here, but also trapped. Do you think the others made it? Ethan asked. Terence turned to look at him without lifting his head from the wall. Ethan was sitting upright, knees drawn to his chest, staring straight ahead with an expression he couldn't read. No way to know, Terence told him. His voice caught as he spoke, as if the words were dust sticking in his throat. Ethan slid backwards on the stone floor until he too was leaning against the wall. The two young men let their eyes rest, half open. Dirt and soot still smudged their faces, mingled with streaks of dried sweat. Ethan had a cut over his left eye, not too deep, more of a split in the skin than a real gash, from where a soldier had struck him. Terence tilted his hand and inspected the flayed skin across his palm. When they had first been ambushed, there were no weapons at hand. The soldiers had come with pistols, but in the close quarters of the ruins they had pulled out knives instead. He blocked the first strike with his hand. Blood still occasionally seeped from the gash. He knew he should clean it, but their water supply was low enough as it was, and every time he attempted to pull the mangled flesh aside, he could see a glint of bone and it made his stomach turn. It was his right hand, the one he should shoot with. With a wry grimace, he remembered being lectured on learning to shoot with his non-dominant hand, just in case something like this happened. Like a fool, he hadn't thought it important. How is it? Ethan asked, noticing him glancing at the wound. Fine. Terence rested his hand on his knee, keeping the palm upturned. How's the eye? Ethan raised his eyebrows experimentally and winced. I'll be fine. He blinked a few times. Just a little blurry, but that'll pass. Terence craned his head back to look at the trapdoor overhead. How long can we stay here? I don't know, a day, maybe less. They'll find out she helped us, Terence said quietly. Ethan was silent. He was the one who had found this place, the home of an older woman who had befriended his family in the past, in the days before the war. Maybe if we left tonight, Ethan said after a while. Terence shook his head. They always find out, he murmured. Moisture oozed down the walls, painting the stones with a murky sheen. Terence could hear the tinny drip drip as droplets beaded on the rocks and plashed into cool puddles gathering in the hollows of the floor. It would be nearly midday outside, though that couldn't be divined from the gloomy light inside the cellar. Get some sleep, Terence told Ethan. We'll stay till nightfall, then we head out. If we move quickly, we might be able to rejoin the others near the border. Ethan nodded and shifted onto his side, curling himself up on a dry patch of stone. Within moments, he was asleep. Terence envied that ability. It seemed his friend could sleep just as soundly on a down mattress as on the damp, cold floor of a cellar. Terence slid further down the wall until his back rested in a semi-comfortable position. He kept his head tilted up, towards the trapdoor in the ceiling, and with his left hand he pulled a stolen pistol from his waistband and propped it against his knee. The chamber was empty, but no one needed to know that. Slowly, Terence let his eyes close, ready to spring awake at the slightest noise. It wouldn't be hard. After today, he wasn't sure he'd ever rest easy again. The end.
Hey. All right. Yeah, we can applaud. I turned us all on. I think. Unmute all. I think I unmuted everybody. You guys, I'm just learning how to host on this stupid.
I was just afraid of people around me being loud. That was mostly why. Great job, Carissa.
Thank you.
So you said that's just a piece that's floating around? You don't have it, it's not part of something bigger, or?
No, like, it's kind of what I do for writing exercises sometimes when I have like no inspiration at all. So I just like a scene and write it, but it doesn't really have any other context.
Huh.
I want to read a full novel of it.
I know.
Yeah, I kind of store them away in case for later ideas if I ever have any. But
That's a good plan. And it all adds up eventually, right?
hopefully.
Yeah, you could have fooled me with that. I thought it was from something like much bigger.
Yeah, it has that feeling for sure. Yeah. Okay, our next reader is Joelle. So we'll let you introduce it a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to read 2 short original poems, and then I'm going to be reading one of my favorite poems from John Keats. So the first one is called The Grind. Teeth unbleached, worn away by nights of restless sleep, years of orthodontia eroded to dust of calcium and phosphorus. Dreams forged in sleep may fade with daylight, but the ache of a worked jaw will remember the feeling. Nights of anxiety leading to a lifetime of dental impropriety. And then the second one is called A Tale from the Costume Shop. The lonely gloves wait patiently in a box, sitting in the back of the costume shop, waiting for a match, hoping for a pair, reaching for a hand that just isn't there. Solitary satin, lifeless and unfulfilled. For what good is a single glove when your hands feel a chill? Through plays and promenades, the lonely glove box has remained. Buttons and lace may dull with age, but what a waste to throw them away. So in their casket they will stay until maybe one day at last a lonely glove will find its other half. And then lastly, this is one of my favorite poems, When I Have Fears That I May Cease to Be by John Keats. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books and care-trees hold like rich garners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night-starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and I think that I may never live to trace their shadows with the magic hand of chance, and when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have relished in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone, and sink to love and fame, to nothingness do sink.
Those were so lovely.
So great, yeah.
That was great. I love the glove one.
The first one was, did you say a dental impropriety?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like
That's great.
Yeah, that one, yeah, that was a fun one to write.
That's great. So have you seen the movie Bright Star by
I have
Jane
not.
Campion? Oh my gosh, especially you, Joelle. So it is about John Keats and Fanny.
Okay.
I think Fanny Burney was her name. So she was his true love, but they couldn't get married because he was too poor and he was already sick. but they lived right next door to each other. So it's a wonderful, wonderful movie. And her thing was that she was into making her own clothes. So you would love it because she's always
Oh,
sewing
yeah.
something and making these completely awesome outfits. So she doesn't look like anybody else. So she's also an inspired artist, and I think that's part of why they like each other. But the movie is by Jane Campion, who's a New Zealand filmmaker, and she's
Okay, she directed
awesome.
the piano, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you would love this because Bright
Yeah,
Star, of course.
definitely.
Yeah. So it's I mean, some of those poems he has to be writing about her because he knows he's dying, but he's in love, which is just, I mean, it's all true and it's just so sad. Yeah. So that's my recommendation. But make sure you have
Thank
a
you.
lot of tissues.
Oh, I
I
will.
showed it for my class, my romanticism class, and the whole class is like, we just watched 20 minutes at a time so we could do other things. And the whole class is, sobbing because it's
Oh
so
my god.
sad. I don't
What is
usually
it
try to
called?
get my classes to cry like that. It's called Bright Star, and the director is Jane Campion.
I'm gonna write
Let's
that
see.
down.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now I have no idea if it's out or like where to stream it, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. It's probably, I don't even know how old it is anymore. Not super, super old. Okay, all right. So, Mohammed, are you ready to go? Glad you could join us.
He doesn't look like he's ready.
I have to unmute him. Wait, where did people keep shifting? So,
I'm sorry.
okay,
My
now you've got
brother.
sound right.
Uh,
So, Mohammed, what time is it in Egypt?
I'm very sorry to interrupt. It's his birthday and he just turned 23 and like 5 minutes ago. I'm very sorry.
Wow.
Mohammed, it's your birthday?
Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday!
birthday! Oh my gosh, I'm so glad we could share this moment.
That's embarrassing.
Don't worry. So, what time is it there? He said it just became your birthday, so it's after
it's
midnight.
it's 1:19 a.m.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I
Thanks
guess
for
I
it's
was
okay
working
that you're out because you're old now.
I was working on something, so I was already gonna be staying up. So it's no biggie at all.
Okay.
Embarrassingly, I actually noticed that all of my work would exceed 5 minutes, so I'm gonna go with a old work that would just hit the 5 minute mark because I don't want to intrude on anyone's. Some of you guys actually know this piece. It's called Skin. Yeah, here it is. Deep in the mountainous desert of Rumah, there lives a people who wish their horns did not grow like nails. These people are called jinn. Their hide is as black as charcoal, and their eyes are a distinct purple that is made beautiful by their jet black hair. The majestic horns of the jinn curl from the temples behind the ears like a ram. These horns are worth thrice their weight in gold. One night on Mount Ar, a lone traveler sat by his fire meditating on the stars above. The man wore a black linen shirt covered in a thick leather coat made from an exotic hide. As his breath froze in the nocturnal abyss of the desert, his meditation was interrupted by a light sound of rubble moving. I have known you're there for a while now, the stranger said, without a hint of agitation or shock in his voice. He slowly moved his face towards the noise, only to be met by two purple gems floating in the darkness of the night. The jinn was far enough away that the light did not touch its face. As the jinn moved towards the fire, the stranger began to see it. She's almost as tall as you, he said, as he clutched the sleeve of his snow-white coat. Fu's eyes fixated on her lanky 8-foot frame. She was bare and malnourished. What's your name? He asked. My name is Hannah. What's yours? She answered, standing a few feet away. She stood instinctively tense while gazing into his epithantic fold. Fu, he replied, as her eyes traced his body in search of a bow or hilt. After about 2 minutes of gazing, Fu's attention returned to the heavens. In an island far away called Edo, your name means flower, Fu said in a monotone voice, as he as he took out pieces of paper from his leather coat. Edo, please describe to me what it looks like, Hannah asked inquisitively. Aside from the coast, it is predominantly covered in vegetation and mountains, Fu replied. Vegetation? My Arabic isn't that good. Plants. Edo is filled with plants. There are trees that fill the sky with pink petals. What are people like in Edo? How do they live? They must have a weird Arabic dialect since my name means flower there. What are they known for? Tell me as much as you know about Edo. They don't speak Arabic in Edo, so they speak Farsi? There is more than just Farsi and Arabic. For example, my native tongue is Chinese. And so Fu spent hours deep in the night describing lands and seas around the world. Around the world. The tension in her muscles subsided with every hour as Fu's tales lulled her mind, and her fear of Fu became non-existent. She eventually seated herself across the fire from Fu. After a calm silence, Fu said, "A man I once knew asked everyone he met the same question. If you could wish for one thing, what would it be?" "I wish I was born without horns," Hannah said with a somber mellowness in her face, as she held her right horn. "Usually, when others see us, they either hunt us or run away screaming, but you didn't. What you told me about flowers, that was the sweetest thing any non-Jinn ever told me," Hannah said. "I don't remember complimenting you," Fu replied as he fidgeted with the collar of his coat. Oh? Oh. However, I'd say you're the fourth most intriguing race in terms of design. "Which one's the first?" she asked with a curious glare in her eyes. "The Urians. They are a pale-skinned and strong race. They live in the northern continent far above Anglia. My friend Nak is one of them. He always told me that Urian skin is resistant to heat and cold, and it is. Urians ignite their body using fire. Urians ignite their fire. Urians ignite their body with fire using aura to keep warm. Usually, their nape and head are always aflame. They do not have any hair. In a sense, fire is their hair." A brief silence fell on both of them as Fu started to document his encounter. Hannah broke the silence. "A muscular, chiseled white man with fire coming out of his nape. I bet Nak is very beautiful," she said with a slight grin that reflected the lust in her mind. "You should know I don't understand beauty, and love for that matter." "I'm sorry to hear that," Hannah replied. "How could I mourn something I never had? It doesn't bother me." "I'm glad it doesn't," Hannah replied. But she also but she almost said, I feel so sad for you. You have no idea what you're missing out on." She held herself back out of concern for his feelings. "I do understand friendship. That's one thing I understand," Fu stated. "Would you like to be my friend?" Hannah asked with a smile on her face. For a Jinn to be friends with anything other than a Jinn was unheard of. Tears fell from Fu's face. "Yes," he exclaimed with a gleeful smile, as a gleeful smile appeared on his face. "Now all three of us can be friends," Fu said with a childish excitement. "All three of us?" Hannah inquired with concern and curiosity. "Yes, my best friend is always with me. Isn't that right, Nak?" Fu said with excitement as he smiled at the sleeve of his coat. As soon as Hannah got the epiphany, she attacked Fu as quickly as she could, but she was never able to touch him. All he did was point at her, and 2 million volts worth of lightning launched through her body. 2 weeks later, Fu was sitting on a deck in Yustafandi port, which is located by the Crimson Sea. He dabbled the water with his feet as he said, I'll make sure you see the world with me, Hannah, as he carried the eternal night of Rumah on his new charcoal black vest. And that's the story.
That took a turn. Nice job. I could not predict that. That was great.
Yeah.
He actually appears in my other work. So I'm working on this world, and Fu is this very misunderstood character. Like he has a lot of issues going on for him. He can't really understand people that well, and he's by no means a good guy or a bad guy. He's very gray, and he makes an appearance in a lot of my stories. So that was me developing his character so I could use him in the other works.
Cool.
And thank you.
So are you saying Jin, like Jin, like the word for
Yes.
spirit, or like a
Yes,
Jin,
herpetology.
like our word genie, right? Like a genie
Yes.
in a bottle.
People
Very
still
cool. I liked that. I liked hearing some Arabic.
people still believe in jinn in the Middle East, and there are in fact still exorcisms that happen where like you'd hire someone from Al Azhar University to come and like do a prayer on you or what have you in order to exorcise the jinn from your body. So that's still something that's believed to this day.
So is it just a word for a spirit? Like
Not really. So Muslims believe that jinn are created from fire while man is created from mud. So they're two very separate beings, and angels are separate beings entirely as well, though they would be closer to jinn in nature because Iblis or the shaitan, or Satan is oftentimes associated with them. So it's believed that they have similar characteristics, but that's
Oh, that's interesting. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Mohammed. And so our next reader, Allison, is not joining us this time, but she said she'd do it next time. So next is Robbie.
All right. Okay. So a little worried about noise in the background for this. Like, I don't know who's getting up to stuff in my house.
Don't worry.
But this is from a I didn't have like a short piece that was all like wrapped up nicely with a bow in 5 minutes, but I have this long piece that's been my kind of like, I guess, project over the extended break. So it's a very long story that's tentatively called Gordon's Scratch, but I feel at some point I might give it a name that is more indicative. So I'm just going to start here at the beginning for y'all. This is the story of how my childhood friend lost his arm. Well, it's a story about a lot of things, like childhood, responsibility, growing up, young love, but those aren't exciting, which is why this story is about my childhood friend losing his arm. Let me start at the beginning, because I don't like reading stories that start in the middle or something weird like that. So who am I? My name is Scarlett Macau. I don't like to go by Scarlett because it's a girl's name, so everyone I know calls me Red, except for my mother, of course. I live in Gordon's Scratch. It's a nice place if you like small and boring places. It's the 256th largest town in the state of Cedar, with only around 1,000 people. We have a school, a lake, some factories, a lumber camp, a strip of 2-story brick buildings called Downtown, and a museum of the weird. Gordon's Scratch only has 3 claims to fame. We're the birthplace of Cedar's 8th governor, Jedediah McClady, who famously banned green foods. We have a 50% infant mortality rate. We have an annual ice cream festival that attracts folks from all over. As you can see, we're just like any other small town in America. Missing, 3 cows completely vanished, and there weren't any footprints from people or animals, but there was a big rut in the ground like some enormous snake had come through to eat them. Riley Jefferson screamed. All the kids crowded around her, gasped. My best friend Alex turned to me. He was trembling worse than my dumb old Chihuahua Lightning. What do you think took the cows? Aliens? The Jersey Devil? He asked. Oh, don't be dumb. Aliens aren't real, and the Jersey Devil wouldn't be here. He doesn't even leave New Jersey. I bet some coyotes got the cows and Riley's playing it up for attention. Riley glared at me. I am not. Daddy said that this was no wild animal. Are you saying that my daddy is a liar? As I rolled my eyes, our teacher, Mr. Specklebottom, entered the room. Plus, Gordon's Scratch isn't home to coyotes. The local bear, wolf, Cougar and coyote populations were extirpated by settlers in the 1800s. Extirpation means that they were driven extinct locally. There's nothing bigger or meaner than a particularly scary dog around here anymore, he explained as he deposited a bundle of books at his desk. Riley threw a hand up. Mr. Specklebottom, how do you know all this? I thought you only taught math. Mr. Specklebottom chuckled. Teachers are allowed to have hobbies too. Now, I think we should get started going over the school code of conduct. I know this is boring and we do it every year, but I think it's important to treat you as the burgeoning adults that you are and tell you about the standards we're holding you to. Alex's hand shot up into the air. Mr. Specklebottom began discussing the definition of bystander, which was apparently very complex and not simply someone who was standing by. Alex shook his head a little bit. When he shook his hand a little bit. When he couldn't get Mr. Specklebottom's attention, he coughed a few times. Yes, Alex? Mr. Specklebottom, what stole the cows? If it's not coyotes or bears, what if it's a giant snake, like Riley said? Should we be worried about a giant snake getting us? I only thought they lived in the jungle, but I guess I'm wrong. Or what if it's aliens and they're abducting the cows and they plan on chopping the cows' heads off and replacing them with human heads? I face-palmed. Alex is a good person, but sometimes he could be a little extreme. As colorful as that idea is, I don't think that's what's been happening to the Jeffersons' cattle. I'm sure there's a perfectly logical explanation, like cattle rustlers, and frankly, you all shouldn't be worried considering that you're not cows. I sat down at lunch with a tray filled up with the cafeteria's finest. Chicken tenders, raw broccoli, French fries, an orange, and ubiquitous milk. Across from me was Alex with a bag packed by his mother. And don't forget to wash your hands. Love, Mommy, he said, reading the note packed in his lunch aloud. I snatched it from him. It was written in a cursive that was barely readable. I rolled my eyes at it. Come on, man, getting notes from your mother isn't cool, I said. Alex was my best friend, but he had struggled throughout the 6th grade with a major case of lameness. Like, take, for example, right now. He was only eating food that was hyperallergenic, vegetarian, dietary-friendly, gluten-free, and all that other stuff. Oh, and guess what he was wearing? In comparison to my ripped jeans and totally cool Ramones shirt, Alex was wearing khakis and a freaking sweater vest. The dude was never meant to go to middle school. But I like knowing that my mom is thinking about me, he argued. This may have been okay last year, but this is 7th grade. Grayson told me that this is when boys start kissing girls. But that sounds gross. Yeah, but it's cool. Alex glanced up the ceiling and shuddered. I can't wait for high school. Grayson says that's when girls and boys start going to baseball games together, I said. Alex gave me a weird look and then shook his head. No, that's not what I meant. I just don't like the ceiling in here. It's too high. I don't like high ceilings. Well, the ceiling's going to be even higher in high school, I said. It's literally called high school. It needs to be bigger because the people in it are bigger. And I feel like I should stop there because I think I've gone on for 5 minutes. Apologies for not having a good place to begin and end there.
That was wonderful.
That was funny.
And this is
The
a performance
delivery.
from screenwriting class.
Yeah, I started writing, I started writing. So I've been writing more over the break because we talk about in our class, it's like you just need to sit down and get time to write and get going to writing. It's like, okay, I've started writing. How the hell do I stop? I've gotten pages so far.
That's a good question. How do you stop? I don't know.
I've been working
Not
through
usually a problem.
and I know how you can have Coke binge energy and go for 1,000 pages now. I understand that, except for the drug part.
I thought you meant Coca-Cola.
I was going for the
Oh,
I was going for the wholesome.
shows how
assuming the
innocent we all
wholesomeness
are.
there, Rob.
I have some drugs during the break.
The voice was funny. That was great. It just
Okay.
it's very just
Mhm.
sounds very present. I liked it. And we're getting positive comments on your beard as well.
Yes. I
That's good to
noticed
see you've been doing something really positive in your spare time, Robbie.
Yeah, thank you. Well, not the beard, really. I don't think that's positive. It needs
Oh, well, that's where I was going. Okay. All right. So our last reader is JC.
Hi.
So do you want to introduce your piece for us?
Sure. So similarly to Robbie, I'm reading from something I've been working on this summer. It's I was writing a novel earlier, but then I kind of had a crisis of faith as far as that went, and I started working on a short story about like my struggles with that kind of thing. It's kind of a semi-autobiographical piece that is about the things that I hate most about myself, and it's called Life Skills, and I'm going to read a part from it right now. Um, Smoke screened in the past, there is this memory of my fourth grade teacher. Her name was Mrs. Lefko. Demented, harpyish, old as Jesus. She was unwilling to acknowledge our status as children and was, from what I could tell back then, the last remainder of a generation of educators that still believed in rulers and knuckles and cattle prods. If I forgot anything like crayons or scissors at home, she would stare at me for a moment, mouth agape, and then feign a shrug and say, "Life skills." Life skills was Lefko's catchphrase. The other faculty knew her as the life skills lady. If you were unlucky and ever got life skills like I did almost regularly, you would begin to feel a bout of anger tears, like in a contact sport played with older, better siblings. For many children in my school, she was the first adult to challenge their glee. There was no recovery, no possible comeback to match the simple, biting response to any pre-adolescent mishap. Life skills. We as students would get life skills so much that we would life skills each other sometimes. Little Cassie Lancaster, whose dad was a race car driver and an entrepreneur and made sure everyone knew it, would slip little notes into my box on Valentine's Day that said life skills instead of be mine, just because my shoebox had been decorated with her supplies. Valentine's was a boy's only real concession to be girly, so I'd used all her glitter. I gotten on Lefko's nerves in various ways throughout the year, but the one that got her the most was the story I wrote every week. We had weekly journals where we were allowed to write for about an hour about things that had happened to us during the past week. I complied for an entry or so at the beginning of the year, but when you're a little kid, so much of what you do is performative anyway, and I think I figured out pretty early that journaling was another form of self-performance. So I instead opted for something far more performative. I started writing my first fiction. It was called Cheese World. The premise of Cheese World was that four siblings were accidentally transported to a world where everything and everyone was entirely made of some form of lactose. There were cheddar trees and mascarpone mountains and swamps of queso blanco. There was Asiago the lion, who guided the children, and the washed rind witch, who was the recurring villain of the story. A regular Tolkien, I drew my own map of Cheese World on the back flap of the marble composition book she'd given me, and every week she'd ask someone to share their journal, and I volunteered my recent installment of Cheese World, The Chronicles of. It began in good spirits. The other kids thought it was pretty funny, inexplicably, and Lefko, despite my spit to the face to her original assignment, treated Cheese World with the same respect and thin-lipped courtesy you'd expect from one of your daughter's boyfriends. She was silent as, week after week, my classmates would huddle around my desk like peasants who offered up their shillings to hear the new Dickens serial. As it went on, you could tell it bothered her when the washed rind witch became more and more haggish, more and more averse to sharing school supplies with others, more and more a mirror of our own teacher. I never stooped low enough to put life skills in the witch's mouth. Even at 10, I had some semblance of authorial restraint, but the parallels were there. And then, when the witch became my punching bag, when other characters were constantly referring to how she was ugly and mean and had no friends or family, Lefko's smiles became thinner. Her eyes did something. It might have been recognition. So what had happened was one of those things that seem normal for a long time until you grow up a little bit and then they don't anymore. Cassie and I had the same table all year, and she hadn't been too happy about that because I'd been such a colossal little shit about her being such a colossal little shit to me. Mornings I came inside the classroom and she looked at me like, "Really? You again?" Lefko had her back turned, and for some reason there was this paperclip resting on her desk that caught my eye. The paperclip was the only thing about this whole scenario that really stuck out in my memory. It was orange and striped, and rather than being pin-shaped and winding inwards like most paper clips, this one was perfectly circular, around the size of a $50. It twisted in on itself and then resolved into four careful bumps in its center, maybe meant to hold multiple packets of paper at once, or perhaps only to look Seussian and unorthodox, which was an aesthetic that many of my teachers strove for. Something about the clip was special to me. Maybe it was because I was a kid and everything that looked appealing always felt like it belonged to me. But I truly believe that there was something inherently seductive about the clip itself. The way, like a tangerine, it curved in itself to create wedges. The way it lay by itself on the edge of her desk, aside from her papers and supplies. The way Lefko and no one else was watching. After I grabbed it, I unfurled it until only the 4 prongs remained, and then shaped it to look like a thumbs up, the prongs becoming the curled fingers. It had no real use or purpose, but I felt a strange kind of pride in it, not dissimilar from the pride I felt with Cheese World. I can't remember what I planned to do with it, maybe keep it pinned to my backpack or my binder as some kind of totem or idol. But it doesn't matter because I showed it to Cassie next to me, and when she saw it, her eyes lit up. That's Mrs. Lefko's special paperclip. Did you ask her if you could use that? At the mention of her name, Lefko turned around and saw it in my hands, and I swear some of the dribble on the corner of her lip got sucked right back up into her mouth. I'd be lying if I didn't say that Lefko made me want to be a writer. It was nothing she did, and I probably would have stayed par for the course without her, but there's this fantasy I've had since elementary school. I'd be signing books in a BNN someday, but not like the desperate and oaky-eyed local writers that are doomed to hit the same 4 stores for the rest of their careers, but like a touring, cultured, popular, yet literary artist. And in line, she would be standing there, clutching a copy of my novel, pre-owned and dog-eared, of course. She'd be a big fan. And approaching closer as the people between my table and her would diminish. She wouldn't be dead, but she'd be close. And when she'd get to me, I'd make sure my desk would be clear of anything I could use to write with. After a small silence, she'd ask, "Do you have a pen?" And I'd smile and straighten myself, ready to reap life's few benefits. Lefko waited for everyone to leave. I think that's what tipped me off when it happened. As my class emptied except for me, she sat at her desk staring at the place where the clip used to lie. She knew I went to the after-school daycare and that it'd be a few hours at least before my parents came for me. When the staff mostly thinned out and gone home, she bolted the classroom door shut and asked me where it was. I brought out the thumb-shaped clip. She breathed and I could see capillaries bulging in her neck. She was measuring something in her head, I'm not sure what. She held out her hand and I gave it to her. "Why did you take this from me?" "I don't know," I said, "because I thought I could take it. I thought it would be okay." "What about anything that's happened," she said, her skin trembling, "makes you think that that would be okay?" I was silent. "You stole this. You took my property and you destroyed it. That's stealing." She could tell I wasn't sorry. She was kneeling and I could smell the chewed egg on her breath. "What are we going to do about this? What do you think I should do with you?" "I don't know," I said. She pretended to think about it and then stuck her finger in the air. "Eureka! I know what I'll do. Clean out your desk. Of all your supplies, find me the thing you love the most because I'm going to destroy it." Her voice was wavering. Something about her own punishment upset her. This is what scared me more than anything else. I was 10. The words cruel and unusual weren't yet in my vocabulary, but even if they were, I don't think I would have found them then. I looked at my desk. My pencil box had been missing for weeks. There were a few rogue assignments, and near the front, my weekly journal. Sweating, I pushed it aside, kept looking. There had to be something else. It may be because it was just so long ago, but I think there were tears in her eyes. I think she really said, "Now, you little shit. Do you hear me? Bring me the thing you love the most." There had to be something else, something that can make sense as an offering. But the sad thing is that there almost never is. That's it.
Ooh, that was something.
Oh, you're muted.
That was amazing.
Thanks.
It was. Did you really write about Cheese World when you were a kid?
I did. That was I think I added the Narnia stuff with this one, but I do remember writing cheese.
Like
I actually,
Asiago the lion?
yeah,
That's
I
right.
added that. I asked my mom if I could go digging through my elementary school stuff in the attic, and I haven't found it yet, but I'm looking. I remember writing it.
That's a sad story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really good though.
Thank you.
So do you read the comic strip Fraz?
Fraz? No, I don't. I used to be
Oh,
obsessed
'cause-
with comics as a kid, though.
Oh, yeah. I'm not. Well, I've noticed that Roanoke doesn't have the same comics as other places, but it's this. Next time I see one of these, but there's an older lady grade school teacher,
Mhm.
and she's always can be counted on to kind of stifle
Yeah.
everything, or somehow the kids have a spark of imagination, and she manages to quench it.
Yeah.
So.
To her credit, the real life teacher this was based on, I was just such a little jerk to her. So it was entirely me being an entitled little jerk. So
I think it's got to be hard to be a elementary teacher. I don't know how they do
absolutely,
it.
yeah.
I really don't. And then they had to do it online this spring.
Oh God, yeah.
I really don't know how they did that.
You can imagine like
I mean, wouldn't it be
8-year-old
easier to do it online than in person? Because I'd imagine
For
the
super little kids. Yeah. I think
Oh,
for college students it was okay and high school was okay, but little kids, I don't know. I think it was hard. All right. Well, thanks everybody. It was really fun to see you all. I loved it. It's almost like we're all back at school again.
All back at school.
Yeah.
I heard that we're like classes, everyone's gonna be, wearing masks and 6 feet apart, like pretty much every group gathering on campus this year.
That's what they're saying.
the whole idea of going to class wearing a mask, like, okay, I can live with that, but just the idea of like seeing anyone on campus like you have to wear a mask sounds like horrifying. It's
Yeah.
like the social climate about like being in a dorm, it's not like you're in like some sort of public building, it feels like you're in your house. And it's like the idea of like having to sit around in your like house wearing a mask is just mortifying.
we're living in interesting times. This is the
Yeah.
only time I could think of where a store could kick you out not for wearing a mask.
Yeah. We were just
Yeah.
learning, we had a theater, not press conference, I guess, but just like base touch. And we found out that whatever show we do this semester, we have to be wearing masks on stage and we have to be 6 feet apart.
And of the opera.
Yeah. So
Man.
That's going
You
to be
say-
challenging.
it is going to be challenging, to the point where it makes you almost question the point of even doing a show. But
Ah,
yeah,
your face is covered.
yeah. Yeah, you would think that would put a
Alive.
damper on things.
So was that Nelson who said that?
Yeah, that's. I
Because
mean, that's
the
it's not quite. I mean, it's not his idea, but it's something we have to
Right.
deal with.
because the Blackfriars Theater in Stanton are not doing that. They're back on stage.
I think it's
I'll have to
less.
find out more about exactly. The actors are 6 feet away
Yeah,
from each other, but they're not wearing masks.
I think it's less a theater at large restriction and more so a school restriction. Like pretty much any group event. Like even Nelson told me, I don't know if this is true or not, but we're gonna have multiple like dining locations on campus because not everyone can be in commons at once. That's how serious they're taking this.
They
Yeah,
were
they're going to have
actually-
different times. You'll be assigned a time to go eat.
Wow.
So from what I understand,
Because not everyone can fit in at the same time.
I heard that they're planning on turning the place where Fruitions is into like some sort of dining area, because Roanoke bought Fruitions last year, so
Possible.
that might happen. So
They were talking about doing something like that anyway, but yeah, and then a lot of like grab and go kind of stuff. So you just take you're eating away.
I can't imagine that there's like advocacy for like buffet style dining right now.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Unfortunately, it's the best
No.
kind of dining, and that's another thing we've been robbed of.
I know. Somebody compared residential colleges to cruise ships, basically, because you're you know, like buffet style eating, and you're all living in close quarters, and so that's a bad thing to be compared to.
We play a mean shuffleboard too, so
I think they should just throw up a
Right.
the whole campus and like put guards patrolling it like the Berlin Wall. No one interact. Oh, life is normal.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be interesting. That's all we can say. Well, guys, so hope you'll. So first of all, it is on YouTube if you want to share it at all, and then we've had a lot of. This has been Carissa's summer project, is getting more stuff up on Instagram, like 3 times a week. Basically, there's stuff on there. If you're not already following it, think about following it, and then Facebook too. But mostly we're using Instagram. So just to keep up with things and see what's going on. So I encourage you to do that. Do you guys think you'd want to do this again in July? Do you think that's
hopefully I'll
I'd love
have something in July.
Yeah, that'd be
I'll have something that. Oh, by the way,
Yes.
Carissa, I missed like most of your piece, so can you send it to me so I could read
It's
it?
up on. It should be up on.
Yeah, you should be able to watch it on YouTube, Mohammed. I
Yeah.
will I'll send you the link, okay?
All right.
Mohammed?
I keep hitting my.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, no, the link is in the email. I got it.
Oh, perfect.
Right. Yeah. So if you go there, this whole thing will be recorded and you can just play it through again.
All right.
And Carissa was the first reader, so that'll be easy. And you'll get to watch us make sure that it's all turned on at the beginning.